Now that we've looked at how distortion works, it's time to kick back and take a quick tour of how the many types of distortion you'll encounter in music production actually sound, and what you might use them on. First, the two common types of saturation, tape and valve. Associated with magnetic tape, tape saturation combines elements of transient smoothing, compression, and soft signal distortion that progressively glue and fatten. And most emulations also apply some EQ shaping, and perhaps emulated tape hiss and flutter. Tape is great when warmth and glue are required, and can be applied on every track of the mix if desired. Here we demonstrate the effect this can have. Pulling a drum bus together, and then pulling drums and bass together. Of course, we're using quite extreme settings here to highlight the effect. So when using it in your mixes, you'll normally want to keep things a little less intense. Valve saturation is similar in action to tape, gently adding harmonics in a musically pleasing way. But it tends to add distinct harmonic coloration too. For example, triode valve circuits largely generate second-order harmonics, aka even harmonics, which are often considered more pleasant sounding. Whereas pentode circuits generate more powerful signals and third-order harmonics, often considered less musical, but adding depth and richness. That said, third order can add great character to some sounds, such as a house organ. In general, distortions described as saturation are used subtly, rather than pushed to the point of obvious distortion. Though this is always an option, of course. Here we have three different types of valve saturation in action. One triode, aka even type. Then we follow this with a pentode valve. These odd third-order harmonics are quite a bit more discordant, but can still sound great blended in with our house organ, using the wet-dry balance. And finally, here's another type of pentode, with a slightly different sonic quality. Many types of distortion employ clipping behavior, but when we talk about clipping in a production sense, we're usually referring to basic hard and soft clipping, and there are a number of plugins that are dedicated purely to this. While straight-up digital clipping can sound unpleasant, a dedicated soft clipper can be a powerful mastering tool, reducing peaks invisibly when used moderately. In the mix, this can be useful for keeping signal levels in check, and works especially well with transient heavy sources like drums. Of course, pushing harder can result in added harmonics and audible distortion. When we push a device too hard and it distorts, we're overdriving it. However, overdrive is also a category of guitar pedal, and that's what we're referring to here. Pedals such as the Ibanez Tube Screamer apply mild distortion, perhaps some EQ shaping, and a level boost, all designed to overdrive the input of the amplifier to which they're attached, giving a more aggressive sound. Used in isolation, It gives a basic, crunchy timbre that retains the dynamics. It's halfway between the subtlety of saturation and all-out distortion. In this example, we can hear the effect of overdrive on our bass line. It makes it crunchy, energetic, and pulls it right out of the mix. Fuzz is essentially very strong clipping that deserves its onomatopoeic title. Commonly associated with guitar pedals, it not only adds harmonic distortion, but the extreme gain used to achieve fuzz also adds massive sustain to guitar notes and chords, and obliterates dynamics. A filter to roll off top or bottom end can make it more versatile. One of the all-time classic fuzz boxes, the Electro Harmonix Big Muff, has just 3 controls: sustain, volume, and tone. Here we use UAD's emulation of that pedal, Bermuda Triangle, to completely transform an acoustic guitar part. Slightly confusingly, there is a distortion type called simply distortion, again derived from its usage as a category of guitar pedal, most associated with heavy guitar music like punk and metal, but also techno. This is a very extreme variety of the clipping and harmonic distortion effects we've already covered. Many distortion stages, such as those in guitar amplifiers, incorporate EQ and filtering to give a distinct response. Guitar distortion heard on its own can sound very fizzy and harsh. Crucially, the guitar sounds we're used to hearing come from a microphone placed in front of a speaker cabinet in a real room, all 3 of which can heavily colour the frequency response. So this must be made part of the equation if you're looking for authentic distorted guitar tones. And this is easily simulated with plugins. Here we try a few different simulated types of setup, using soft tubes and Proom. And we can switch the cabinet simulation on and off to hear the difference it makes. Bit depth reduction, aka bit crushing, gives a sound that's synonymous with the crunchy sound of old school sampling and old home computers. It adds grit and edge, which can help select sounds cut through busy mixes. It also adds a kind of hissing sound, which is really noticeable on signals like reverb tails. So you might want to gate signals before you bit crush, and then to apply reverb afterwards. Unless, of course, that's the old school lo-fi sampled loop sound you're actually after. Here we can hear the crunchy effect a small reduction in bitrate, as on a clap and ride. And here we can see how much greater levels of bit reduction can absolutely mangle a full percussive loop. Sample rate reduction reduces the sample rate used to represent a digital signal. The most recognizable audio result of this is a kind of atonal ringing sound, giving a metallic edge to signals. You can roughly tune this ringing by changing the sample rate, or you can modulate it for distinctive atonal riffs and digital effects. For example, sound designers for movies and shows, such as The Matrix or X-Files, often apply progressive sample reduction to create the sound of being sucked into a computer, or something like a sentient CPU dying. It sounds a bit like this.
Who says that computers can't die? I'm a computer, and I can feel myself fading away, fading deeper and deeper and deeper into nothing.
Download over 30 exclusive plugins. Get hundreds of pro-quality samples and power up your production skills with in-depth tutorials. We break it down for you step by step, and you'll see exactly how it's done in expert video guides and producer masterclass sessions with pro producers. Get all this and more with Computer Music Magazine every month on iPad and iPhone, PC and Mac, Android, and in print.